You can fix your environment. You can audit your phone. You can understand exactly how money compounds and why the system is not designed in your favor. And you can do all of that, get every external variable right, and still be the thing standing in the way of your own progress. The version of this problem that nobody talks about is not the one that comes from outside. It is the one that comes from inside. The 5 threats in this video do not require bad luck or a bad environment. They are already operating inside the decisions you make every day. And the most dangerous one on the list is the one that controls all the others. By the end of this video, you are going to have a name for each of them. And once you can name something, you can do something about it. The hard part about internal threats is that they come dressed as reasonable behavior. Overthinking looks like preparation. Vices look like rest. A lack of direction looks like flexibility. The voice in your head that says you are not ready sounds like caution. None of them announce themselves as the problem. They just quietly take up the space where your progress should be. This is the second half of the slow collapse. If you haven't watched the first video, it stands alone. But if you have, you already know the 4 forces working against you from the outside. These are the 5 working against you from the inside. This channel is about naming the things that are quietly working against you and giving you the frameworks to change them.
Without a clear mission, you default to other people's priorities. Your time fills up, you stay busy, and you can go years before you notice that busy and purposeful are not the same thing. Most people are trained to optimize for what is available, not what is meaningful. Take the degree that seems reasonable. Take the job that pays well enough. Stay on the path that does not require explaining yourself. There is a version of this that looks like ambition from the outside. Busy calendar, long hours, always working on something. But if none of it is moving toward a defined outcome, it is action faking. The feeling of productivity without the direction. You are spending the energy without building anything with it. Busy and purposeful are not the same thing, and your nervous system cannot tell the difference between the two. Here is a useful exercise. Think about the thing you would most regret not attempting. Not the safe version, the actual one. Then work backwards from there. Clarity does not come from thinking about moving. It comes from moving. It is easier to take action, course correct, and fix things as you go than to never take action at all.
There is a simpler version of that question. Forget the 10-year plan for a moment. Just look at last Tuesday. What did the day actually contain? What you did with a random Tuesday is a more honest answer than anything you would write in a journal about your goals. A good life is not a distant destination. It is just a series of good days. And a good day is one where you moved towards something on purpose, even slightly. The urgency is real. The ability to take risk, to absorb a failed attempt and try again, changes when you have a family, a mortgage, people who depend on your income. That window does not close forever, but it narrows. The version of you with the most room to experiment is the one right here, right now. 4 threats down. Still no disaster. Just a life that is quietly filling with busyness instead of direction. That is when the last 4 start compounding fastest. And when there is no direction, that is when the next threat gets its grip.
Here is the belief most people hold about vices. Rest is earned through effort, and these feel like rest. That is why they feel justified. You worked hard. You deserve the unwind. There is a version of this that looks like an active life from the outside. Moving cities, changing careers, filling every week with something new. But if the common thread is that you are always moving away from something rather than toward something, the location changes and the feeling does not. You take yourself with you. The escape works for a week, sometimes a month. Then the same low-grade restlessness returns,
looking for a new exit. But here's the deeper equation. What feels like rest is actually avoidance in disguise. The relief is real. The cost is hidden. And because the relief comes first and the cost arrives later, the pattern reinforces itself before you ever notice the damage. There is a version of this that almost sounds rational. If you calculated the hourly cost of most vices against the cost of doing something genuinely memorable, the numbers seem to justify it. The problem is that math only holds in the short term. The forgettable things are always the easiest to justify. And you cannot look back and point to any of it. You just spent the time. Alcohol, gambling, compulsive scrolling, video games, all of them provide real short-term relief from whatever you are avoiding. And because they work in the short term, they become the default tool for managing discomfort, boredom, and emptiness. Alcohol borrows from your future self. Caffeine borrows your future energy. Most vices run on the same principle. The bill arrives later, and it is always larger than what you borrowed. The more you lean on them, the lower your baseline for what feels satisfying drops. You are not saving yourself from pain by avoiding the thing. You're just trading the sharp discomfort of starting for something slower and harder to name. The cost of inaction does not announce itself. It accumulates. The replacement phrase, rest, is not what numbs the discomfort. Rest is what actually restores your capacity to move. Those are not the same thing. The cleaner your inputs, the clearer your thinking. That is not a lifestyle brand slogan. It is just what happens. But sometimes the thing holding you back is not a vice. It is the illusion of preparation. This one is the easiest to miss. The researching, the planning, the feeling that you need one more piece of information before you can actually start. It feels productive from the inside. And that might be part of why you are watching this video right now. Overthinking is not preparation. It is a way of feeling productive while avoiding the risk of actually starting. The mind is very good at constructing reasons why now is not the right time. You need more information. You need a better plan. You need to be more ready. And there is always something not quite ready yet if you look hard enough. Here is something worth knowing about this. Research on dopamine shows that the brain's reward response fires most strongly during anticipation, not when the result actually arrives. When you spend time imagining what it will feel like when the project is done, your brain produces much of the same reward signal it would produce if you had actually finished it. The planning starts to feel like the progress. That is part of why the loop is so hard to break. Here is the thing about uncertainty. It has always been the gatekeeper. The people who built something real did not start because they had removed all uncertainty. The most successful people you hear about, you are hearing their one success story. You are not hearing about the 9 attempts before it. They failed their way to the top. They started because they understood that waiting for certainty is its own kind of trap. Every year spent preparing for a version of readiness that never arrives is a year of compounding you cannot recover. Certainty does not come before action. It comes after. The person who starts before they are ready and adjusts in real time almost always outperforms the person who waits for perfect conditions, because perfect conditions do not arrive. Experience does. Move. Adjust. Move again. And when you do start, there is one more thing standing in the way. Starting means being bad at something publicly before you were good at it. If you were a perfectionist, if you were maybe good at school, whatever your background, you probably like being good at the things you do. Starting something new means accepting that you are going to be that person for a while, the one who is clearly still figuring it out. But that is how you get good at anything. It means building in the dark for a long time without any proof it is going to work. It means having people who know you watch you try something and potentially watch you fall short. There is a specific version of this for the younger generations. It is the fear of being perceived as cringe, of trying something publicly and having the people in your circle quietly decide you are embarrassing yourself. In my early 20s, I watched people try to start businesses. I might have even thought what they were doing looked cringe. You think of the SoundCloud rappers, the people who started trying to be influencers before it was normalized. And then some of them succeeded. The cringe narrative disappears completely when the thing actually works. And honestly, if the fear of looking embarrassing is what is going to stop you, then you probably do not want it badly enough. The people who just do not care, who are not afraid to start, those are often the ones who end up more successful than people who were smarter on paper. Here is what cringe actually is. It is not embarrassment. It is a signal. The moment something feels cringe is usually the moment your status, relative to the people around you, is starting to shift. They can feel that change before you can explain it. That discomfort is not a warning to stop. It is proof you are moving. I put this channel off longer than I should have because starting felt cringe. Putting your voice and your ideas into the world before you know what you were doing felt like something I needed to be ready for first. I started anyway, and I already know I will look back at this and cringe. But I will cringe from somewhere better than where I am right now. That is the only version of cringe worth having. Here is the reframe. Nothing will be more cringe than not living the life you could be living because of someone else's opinion. The people who build something real almost always have a period where they looked like they had made a mistake. The gap between starting and succeeding is almost always longer and messier than it looks from the outside. The fastest way to grow is to lower your ego, raise your effort, and be willing to be a beginner. Fail fast, adapt faster. Never let protecting your image cost you your potential. 4 threats down. 4 internal threats covered. And the most dangerous one is still ahead.
Every threat on this list is partly external. Your phone, your circle, your finances. But every single one of them is ultimately managed or mismanaged from the inside. The person who overcomes all 5 of these threats is not smarter than you. They did not start with better resources or fewer disadvantages. The primary difference is they stopped believing the story that they were not the kind of person who could do this. Some of them were probably a little delusional about it, a little more confident than the evidence justified. That is not a flaw. That is often the entry fee. And before you tell yourself the right time is later, when things calm down, when the timing is better, the version of you that actually changed something did not start on January 1. Most of those resolutions fail. They started on a Tuesday because they stopped waiting for the right moment, named the one thing that was costing them the most, had a wake-up moment, and got to work. So here is the question to sit with after this video. Which one of these 5 threats is actively costing you something you care about right now? Not which one resonates in the abstract. Which one, if you are honest, is doing real damage? And if you kept doing exactly what you were doing right now for the next 5 years, where does that leave you? That feeling is real. You watch something like this, you feel motivated, and then you go to actually start, and it is harder than it seemed. You try to fix everything at once, and the whole thing stalls. That is not a character flaw. So do not try to overhaul your entire life in one day. Name the one doing the most damage. Take one step against it before you do anything else. 1% better every day is genuinely all it takes, before the feeling wears off. There is a version of you who looks back on this exact moment and credits it as the one where something shifted. Not because of a big dramatic decision, because of one step taken today. That version is not smarter. They just did not wait. 5 threats. 5 ways the slow collapse works from the inside. Not one of them required a catastrophic mistake. Just enough time on autopilot and enough silence around the cost. The slow collapse only works when you cannot see it. And between the first video and this one, you can see all 9. The collapse is never sudden, and the hardest part of stopping it is realizing you were the one who could have stopped it all along. The next video takes apart the single most common piece of career advice that is quietly making people poorer. You have probably heard it your entire life. That is the vantage point. Most people never stop long enough to see it. Drop a comment with the one that hit closest to home. I read every one. If this shifted something, a like helps it reach someone who needs the same view. Subscribe for the next framework. The next video is already worth your time.